Hello, I'm Megan Wynn, and this is my professional development on visual processing disorder. And so I wanted to start off by saying what it is, what it isn't. And so a visual processing disorder can cause issues with the way that the brain processes visual information. And so there's actually 8 types of difficulty or 8 different visual processing difficulties that there are. The first one is visual discrimination issues, and so that's trouble seeing the difference between similar shapes and objects, and then that can translate into words and reading as well. The second one is visual figure ground discrimination, and so they have trouble distinguishing shapes, letters, words, just visual information from the background. And then visual sequencing issues is the third type, which is basically finding it difficult to shape letters and words in the correct order. And so this can result in them skipping lines or reading the same line over and over again. Then there's the visual motoring processing issue, which is trouble with the way they coordinate, the way they move. And so this could be with they may struggle to write within the lines or bump into objects in the classroom. And then there's long or short-term visual memory issues. So they struggle to remember the shapes and remember the letters, which obviously can cause issues with writing and reading if they can't remember letters or words. And then there's visual spatial issues, which is just understanding where objects are in space. So not understanding how close they are to objects or how close their words are together on the paper and such. Then there's the seventh type, which is visual closure issues, which is difficulty identifying an object when only parts of it are showing. So like if I only showed you half of this image, you may not understand what the other half would be. And then the last one is letter and symbol reversal, which is just an issue of switching letters when writing or numbers, and they may mistake similar letters such as B and D or W and M. And so then I wanted to go over some myths and facts. I know there's lots of myths and facts about learning disabilities and learning disorders in general, and so I want to just go over a few of visual processing disorders. And so, is this a myth or a fact? Smart students do not have visual processing disorders. And so this is actually a myth. Many people with visual processing difficulties or disorders do well in school and in their careers, especially when given the right strategies and skills to help them with that. Next, myth or fact, a person with visual processing difficulties may have 20/20 vision. And so this is actually a fact. Visual problems and visual processing disorders are not the same thing. And so another myth or fact, dyslexia and visual processing disorder have the same symptoms. And so this is actually a myth. Individuals with dyslexia struggle to connect letters and symbols, while those with a visual processing disorder struggle to understand visual information. And then the last myth or fact, children can outgrow visual processing difficulties. And so this is actually a myth. Visual processing disorders are lifelong conditions. They don't just magically disappear. And so they won't outgrow it, but we can give them skills and we can use strategies in the classroom that can help accommodate those. And so I wanted to focus on some classroom strategies. So the first one I wanted to mention was a visual schedule. And so a visual schedule helps to provide them with visuals of what they're going to do during the day, and as well as providing an image as well as words. And then another way to make this even better for the students with visual processing disorders is just to read it out loud. You can do that throughout the day, on the beginning of the day, and that just helps to solidify because they can see it and hear it as well. Another one for classroom strategy is just give breaks. This doesn't necessarily mean having extra recess, but you can do things such as take time away from just visual processing, because that could take a lot of toll on a person, especially if they're struggling with visual processing information. And so what they can do is you can do something tactile, like playing with Play-Doh or playing with sand, or you can do something auditory like listening to music, listening to an audiobook. And then I wanted to talk about some accommodations that we can use in the classroom. And so there's lots of accommodation that we can do for individuals with a visual processing disorder. And so one of them is a word window or an index level. And so basically you take an index card for a word window and you cut out a little square in the index card for that word window. And then while they're reading, they'll just move that along. And so the only thing in the little window is the word that they're on. And so this can allow them to focus more on that word and to take time and see just that word so they're not distracted by other things and they can focus on trying to figure out what that word is. Another one is an index level. So on a task such as reading, when they're reading the same line over and over again or skipping lines, what you can do is you can put that index card down and so they'll know what the line they're reading is right above the index card. And so that will help them keep their place and not read the same line over and over again or skip lines. Another accommodation we can do in the classroom is a note-taking buddy. And so processing both the lesson and writing, so visual processing in both listening to the lesson and trying to understand what's going on in the front or during the lesson, as well as writing, can be very hard for an average student, let alone a student with visual processing disorder. And so giving them another student to help them just take notes and just to have them focus just on the lesson and then they can have the written notes for later is a great idea to help them concentrate on the lesson and to give someone the written notes as well. And then the last accommodation I wanted to speak on was audiobooks or large print books. So audiobooks are obviously very helpful so they can hear the words and so they're not visually processing them, and that can just help to accommodate them in the classroom, especially if they're having difficulties with the visual processing of just reading or writing in general. An audiobook can help them to just focus on what's actually happening and truly learn from the book. Another one is a large print book. With a larger print book, there's less words on the page, and so they're able to focus more on the words, as well as they're larger, and so it's easier to focus on them. So imagine a larger book with less words. Of course, it's a little easier to focus on each word because there's so much less words on the page. Right. And then this is my bibliography. And then this was my professional development on visual processing disorder. Thanks, guys.